All right, everyone, it's time to analyze the presidential debate that we saw last night. It was meh, basically. There wasn't really much of any real substance, and part of that was because Donald Trump, I think, was trying to be more restrained. He didn't want to come off as a bully against Kamala. That makes sense. That being said, of course, she was vacuous as expected. Didn't really talk much about policy at all, actually. And when she did talk about policy, the policies obviously are not exactly what we want as a nation. Donald Trump did not fulfill several of his goals. He did manage to bring her out of her shell and force her to speak about some issues. But that was sort of a half and half, so to speak. It only worked like part of the time. He did manage to tie her to the Biden administration, of course, the Biden administration being legendarily unpopular. Beyond that, though, his performance was maybe sort of on and off. He never really delivered the death blow to the Kamala Harris campaign, which was what I was hoping that he would do. What I was hoping that he would do is he would catch her in a moment, get her cackling, or say, hey, you're part of the Biden administration. Why have you not done all of these great soaring things that you say that you want to do? You're literally the vice president. He never really did that. What Kamala did do was she did fuck herself a couple of times, especially on guns, for example. Admitting that she and Tim Walz both own firearms, that's not going to go over necessarily very well with left-wing voters. But there was no knockout moment, unfortunately. Now, the saving grace is that Kamala Harris is insane enough that her campaign has decided, well, we want another debate in October. That's not a good idea. You want to hide Harris as much as possible. This debate was effectively a stalemate, which means Trump didn't get a knockout moment. Kamala certainly didn't get a knockout moment because she's a poor speaker. What you would want to do, therefore, is just hold to, your own goals and not have her out in public. Because you always run the risk, if Trump has a particularly good day during the next debate, which may or may not happen, and knocks her out, then you've got a real problem on your hands. I'm not sure who is advising her, but they should probably be paid less. That's how I would put it. This debate was basically meh mode. It was pretty boring. It wasn't really, there was no real takeaway. Kamala had a couple of gaffes, but overall was reasonably coherent. So it's more than we can say for Joe Biden, admittedly. Not that that's necessarily anything other than a very low bar. Donald Trump had a decent debate, but he didn't deliver the knockout punch. I was hoping so much that he would catch her in one of those moments where he could tie her directly in with the Biden administration, or where he could directly confront her on the vacuousness of issues. The fact that she doesn't really have a platform at all. She's got a couple of planks in there that she's fleshed out. He should have done a Chris Christie versus Marco Rubio moment and said, look, this woman is saying a couple of things here, but she's not really fleshing anything out. She doesn't really have a platform. And that's by design. He should have brought up the Kasich effect or something like that. Overall, I would say Trump kind of wins the debate in the sense that he didn't have any major fuck-ups or anything like that. He didn't take the bait, generally speaking. In fact, he did work in one good thing, which was that he did the now I'm speaking thing to Kamala. The thing that she did to the Gaza protesters. That was a good moment. But that was basically the only big hit that he had during the debate. Otherwise, I found myself kind of zoning out because it was boring. It was more boring than anything else. There were no real fireworks at all. And part of this is because of the muted mic system. Part of this is by design, and that actually helps him. But you got to bring the energy. You're Donald Trump. you've got to be more energetic than your opponent. She's like, gesticulating wildly and stuff like that. She looks frenetic. You've got to outdo her, though, somehow. You've got to do what you did in 2016. And I don't think that Donald Trump actually accomplished that. Now, does this change the metric of the election? In my opinion, not really. I still think that Donald Trump has a significant chance to win re-election. I still think it's like an 80-20 sort of proposition. And that's because he is still riding well ahead of where he was in 2016 when he won the election. But that's just polling analysis. That has nothing to do with the debates. My hope is that he does take the opportunity to have a second debate with Kamala Harris. Being challenged directly by the Kamala Harris campaign actually to do so. Take the challenge. This next time, make sure to nail her with her own words. Pay close attention to what she says. Nail her with her own words. That's number one. Number two, more directly tie her to the Biden administration. Again, this is something that Donald Trump did succeed at doing, which is important. He tied her to the Biden administration. But you need to drive that fact home. Really, really hard. That's what you need to do. And number three, if I had any further advice to give, I would say make her uncomfortable to the point where she does her legendary cackle. Make her incredulous. Now, she can claim incredulity. Ha ha ha, Donald is being disingenuous or something like that. People are not going to like that. That's what Donald Trump needs to do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if he can accomplish a couple of those goals at a second debate, that would be the thing to do. I think that he prevailed in the sense he didn't have any major weak moments or anything like that at this debate. He didn't make any major gaffes. He talked about issues, but he allowed Kamala Harris to skate on being very vacuous on those issues. Like, she wasn't even addressing most of the issues that she was asked about, and Trump never really confronted her. I was actually surprised. I was genuinely surprised at the fact that he was so non-confrontational. If anything, Trump can be a little acerbic sometimes. He can be a little bit too confrontational. But in this particular instance, you probably should have hit harder. The problem with Trump, and I fucking hate this, he will dance around and jab. So he'll jab his opponent, but he never really delivers the knockout. He never really follows through with it. And this becomes a fucking problem. And I've complained about this now for the better part of a decade, actually, with regards to Donald Trump. It's strange because when he's on Twitter or something like that, it's, heavy hitting, it's a mean tweet. When he's in person at a debate or something like that, he doesn't quite follow through. And it pisses me off, actually, because I know that he's capable of doing so. I mean, I've seen him do it before. Like in 2016. In a couple of the primary debates, he really followed through. I know that he's capable of it. But he's holding back, so to speak. And he needs to not hold back. He needs to go full Trump mode, in my opinion. That would be my advice to him if I were one of his debate advisors. You could have absolutely smashed Kamala Harris a half a dozen times during the debate, but you pulled your punches. And so the debate just became kind of boring, actually. I'm sure I'll be talking about it with the quartering later. It's like, it wasn't a bad performance. It wasn't bad. It's just that it could have been better. It's more like Donald Trump sort of broke even, but he could have knocked her out. And it's like if Mike Tyson decided to pull his punches. You've got one up on the enemy, on your opponent, but you refuse to take the opportunity, and instead you just sort of like smack-a-dap-a-doo them in the face over and over again, and they're like, what the fuck? You allowed Kamala Harris to get away with blatant lying on multiple occasions, etc., etc. Now, that being said again, Trump's performance was acceptable. There was nothing terribly wrong with it. It's just that he could have put her away completely and totally laid waste to her, like he did with Joe Biden. And he did not take the opportunity to do so. It was frustrating, honestly, watching the debate. By the way, to people who didn't like my debate stream, you've got to understand my screen got broken, and there wasn't actually much to talk about during the debate at all, honestly. It was, it's all right for Trump. He didn't fail or anything like that. He's still standing. But then again, he could have done much better. He is capable of that sort of rhetorical skill. He just did not utilize it. And so I'm hoping that he takes the second debate with Kamala Harris. I'm hoping that the challenge is answered in the affirmative, because he can do it. He's capable of it. We've seen him do it. He's been able to completely shaft people who he debates, including members of his own party, not even in the primaries, by the way. He's capable of that. He just didn't take the opportunity. Be less demure, be less restrained, and lash out at Kamala Harris. What you need to do is go on the offensive. The best defense is a good offense, and that's what he needs to do. He needs to absolutely crush her. He doesn't need to be on the defense. That's the other problem. During parts of the debate, he's defending his own record. Why didn't you force her to defend the Biden-Harris record more often? A couple times he managed to do that, but otherwise, mainly, he was on the defense. Now, he does a fairly good job of that, but you don't want to be on the defense. So Trump definitely needs more debate prep. He needs to talk with Tulsi more, because she's the one that crushed Kamala in the beginning. And you need to get under her skin. Make her do her cackling laugh. Force people to understand, look, she's part of the administration that you all fucking hate. She's the VP. She could do all these wonderful things, supposedly. But she's literally in office right now. We had very little mention of the fact that she is currently in office. It was a frustrating debate overall. Not a disaster. He didn't lose specifically, but he barely broke even. This was a 50-50 sum debate, honestly. And I've criticized Trump before. There are times when he's really shined, like when he was up against Joe Biden. There was no comparison, for example. He crushed him. You can't count on Kamala Harris to have a breakdown on stage unless you antagonize her. You're going to have to do that. Take the October debate and run with it. That's about all. Peace out.